Hello everyone, my name is Cole Williams, and if you couldn't tell by the title of this video, I'm not going to talk about Power Rangers. I'm not going to talk about Super Sentai. I'm not going to talk about Kamen Rider, Ultraman, or anything tokusatsu related because this is much more serious and much more important. I apologize in advance if I gloss over anything. I hadn't planned to get this overtly political on my channel, and just because of the way my brain operates, some of my thoughts may sound disjointed, but what else is new? But I have a voice, I have a platform, and I'm not going to pretend that what's happening right now isn't happening. As I'm sure many of you are aware, there have been massive protests across the United States, some of which are violent, some of which are non-violent, some of which go from the latter to the former. These protests were sparked by the recent murder of George Floyd at the hands of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, which was caught on video that has since gone viral. Naturally, this caused widespread outrage, mainly because the Minneapolis Police Department really dragged their feet when it came to actually arresting Chauvin for Floyd's murder. And even then, it took them a bit to not just charge Chauvin with third-degree murder, which is typically reserved for accidents. And it also took 50 states and 18 other countries making noise before they arrested the other 3 cops involved and charged them for aiding and abetting second-degree murder, if they've even done that as I'm recording this. Make no mistake, what Chauvin did was intentional. In response, the people of Minneapolis tried to raise awareness and tried to bring about some change through peaceful protest, and according to an actual resident of Minneapolis whose house was less than a mile away, everything was going perfectly fine until the police showed up in riot gear and started hitting the protesters with water cannons, tear gas, and rubber bullets. Other citizens said there were dozens of undercover police throwing rocks, shooting out parking lot lights with 4mm marker rounds above protesters, shooting rubber bullets at people with their hands in the air. They shot a man in the head with a gas canister, they shot at a person in a wheelchair with tear gas, and things really started getting violent after a man who was identified as St. Paul police officer Jacob Peterson smashed the window of a local AutoZone. Things escalated from there. Buildings were set on fire, stores were looted, it was absolute chaos. This and subsequent protests have been criticized by people on social media, largely depending on whether any given protest was violent or non-violent. What do I think of the protest at large? Well, before I continue, here's a quick disclaimer. I'm going into this, monologue, soliloquy, manifesto thing with the full knowledge that I, a white man, don't really have as much room to talk about this sort of thing as other people might. That said, I will try to do the best I can with the very limited understanding that I have. First of all, right off the bat, in regards to the looting thing, it sucks, especially for the small businesses that have been affected. I generally don't believe that stealing is a particularly good thing unless you have a good reason. But I'm not as concerned about it for a very simple reason. While looting isn't good, material goods can be replaced. People's lives cannot be replaced. Target, for one, will be okay. More importantly, there's the matter of the peaceful protests that turned violent, which at this point is a great deal of them. These protests have been criticized by many, including people close to me, as being, criminal or uncivilized or the wrong way to go about this, but honestly, what did you expect? Of course violence isn't the answer, but for God's sake, can you blame them? I know that as a white man, I won't ever be capable of fully understanding their anger and frustration, but I'd like to think I have at least some idea. With the way things have been going on for years, if not decades, if not centuries, peaceful protest is hardly a viable option anymore, partly because you've still got the people who complain when people protest peacefully. Remember when Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the national anthem to protest police brutality? The charlatan-in-chief called him a son of a bitch and anti-American, as if he has any business calling him either of those things considering how he operates. Remember when Kobe Bryant, may he rest in peace, tried protesting police brutality? He was told to shut up and dribble. And in the meantime, even now, across the country, you have civilians and even some local politicians trying to do the same, and they get beaten, shot at, tear gassed, pepper sprayed, run over, and everything else. So, tell me, what would you, the viewers of this video, do if your people were getting killed, and they've been getting killed for centuries, which makes you understandably frustrated and upset, so you try to change things by peacefully protesting, and not only does nobody listen to you, but the police come and actively cause you physical harm and do everything in their power to silence you, and you realize at that point that nobody wants peace, they want submission. To anyone who just answered that they fight back, let me ask you another question. What are you going to do? Are you going to attack someone in full tactical gear holding a weapon? Or are you going to hurt a multi-billion-dollar business that probably contributed to the death of mom and pop shops in your town? And they probably have insurance anyway. And before anyone says it, maybe some of the looters wanted free stuff. I don't know what went on in each individual's head, but for the most part, it's not about that. And from my lamest perspective, I don't think it's just about George Floyd either. For my money, George Floyd was just the tip of the iceberg. I think that this is also about Tamir Rice, Tatiana Jefferson, Sandra Bland, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Botham Jean, Philando Castile, Eric Gardner, Alton Sterling, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, David McAtee, and the countless other black people that have been mistreated and met their deaths at the hands of racists, particularly racist police officers, throughout American history. It's clear to me that the institutionalized and systemic racism and white supremacy are factors in many, if not all of these cases, and it's especially rampant in law enforcement. And as long as that is the case, innocent black people are going to keep dying unless we all do something to change that. I know that this is all very heavy, and having to have this conversation absolutely sucks, but ignoring it is what got us where we are now. So to the protesters who are out there putting their bodies and their lives on the line, please keep going. Don't give up. Stay safe and stay alive if you can help it. If you can't get to the protests, there are other avenues in which you can help out. I've posted a couple of links that will be conveniently found in this video's description. One of them is a GoFundMe organized by George Floyd's sister, Philanese, to cover funeral and burial expenses, mental and grief counseling, lodging and travel for all court proceedings, and to assist George's family. I should also point out that a portion of these funds will also go to the estate of George Floyd for the benefit and care of his children and their educational fund. I've donated my money already, and I think you should too. The other will direct you to a bevy of donation links, petitions, and other resources that we can all use to educate ourselves, which, let's face it, would serve us very well. These are increasingly dark times, as dark as I've personally seen in my entire life. But isn't the smallest chance of victory enough of a reason for us to keep on fighting? If you like this video, hit it with a thumbs up. If you hate this video, you better unsubscribe because you're not welcome on my channel. Leave a comment down below unless you're planning to post some racist tirade or some all lives matter type nonsense, in which case don't bother because I'll just delete it. Tell your friends to watch my videos if they want to, and don't forget to follow me on social media if you want to. Thank you all for watching, and remember, Black Lives Matter.